Alrighty, we're live.
Okay. Hey, Tim.
Hey
Again.
Charlie, who are you and where are you?
I'm Charlie, and I'm the general manager at Exposure Ninja. I've been the general manager for almost 3 years, and before that, I was content marketing manager, and before that, one of the first CM ninjas in the team hired by Tim directly. At the moment, I'm in Colombia, in a unappealing city called Cali, which is kind of a stop-off point between nice mountain towns, which is it's basically always my goal to be sitting in a nice mountain town where it's quiet, where the scenery is beautiful, and where the food's good.
Amazing. So we're going to talk a bit about how we can, how freedom can be the freedom to travel and do the crazy stuff that you and Luke do. But first, I want to ask you about more everyday kind of freedom which feels easier for people that are used to working in one specific location. So obviously working remote, we can do whatever we want. We don't have to go to live in a mountain town to be free. What are some of the ways, like everyday ways, that we can be free, and how can we take advantage of remote work to live actual lives?
Yeah, totally. So, in terms of the freedom at EN, because we have such flexi time, such ability to move locations, and also be with the people that we want to be with, I guess I've used my freedom at work to do a couple of different things. One of them has been traveling, and that was the first main reason I decided to work remote and join EN. But also I have completely changed my lifestyle multiple times in the past 5 years to do the things that I wanted to prioritize at the time. So last year I spent the whole year living in Brighton, which was to buy a first place with Luke, so that we had a flat and we had some kind of roots and grounding near his family and also near my family in London. And part of the reason we did that as well was because I wanted to commit some time to being with my family. My nan was really unwell and she actually passed away last Christmas. So it was actually really important to me not to be moving and to be near her and to spend as much time with her in between my work as possible. Sometimes I stayed at her house and actually worked from there. Sometimes I just commuted between Brighton and where she lived, which was a couple of hours difference. And I guess just the freedom to move your hours around and focus on what you want to be your priority, so that you don't ever feel like you have any regrets about what you've been doing, has been super important to me as well. And then on a kind of more everyday basis, I actually move my hours around quite a lot. I have like a fixed start time that I always work to, and I try and work really early in the morning so that I can finish a bit early. But that's so I can prioritize using freedom to do things like going bouldering and going to the gym, or going up to London to see, I've got a lot of friends who live there, and that's like a couple of hours after work on a Friday where I'd like to do that. And also, like, I really enjoy cooking long lunches or cooking long dinners and actually spending time focused on like health and not rushing around doing loads of different things. So I think you can use freedom in so many different ways with a job that, like a remote working job at EN.
I think there's two things there which I think are really interesting. Firstly, the no regrets thing, which I 100% buy into more than anything now that Luke is here, because when he was born, I was like, I really don't want to look back on the first few years of his life and say, I wish I was around more. And because I'm at home, when he gets home, he gets through the door and shouts, "Daddy!" And I just run to the top of the stairs and say hi and maybe go down and give him a hug or something. And like multiple times per day, even though it doesn't feel like anything at the time, I think when I'm older and look back on this period, I'm going to be like really, really glad I was around there.
Yeah, definitely.
That
I
kind of,
remember that massive excitement as a child as well, of your parent actually being there, and that horrible feeling of like, if you got home before them and then why are they working late? So I definitely understand, like, probably the feeling of a parent wanting to, have that moment with their child each day. It's pretty big.
the other thing you said was that you like to finish early, so to go and do things. And I sometimes think that maybe people would assume that as they're working for Exposure Ninja, we want them to be working like all the time. Like default position will be, we just want you to be working all the time. And it's almost like you might feel a bit guilty for finishing early. I know that I definitely get that, and no one's kind of checking my hours, so I'm sure that other people have it as well. But really, we kind of want people to live their lives, don't we? We want well-rounded people that have a broad range of life experience and that are happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a massive difference between just moving your time so that you can arrange it how you want, and if that is, you know, starting work at 6 and finishing early in the afternoon like it is for me, or whether that's the other way around, because I know that you usually gym first and dedicate that morning time to like more personal activities and then work slightly later. As long as you're like achieving all of the tasks that you need to do at work, hitting all your deadlines and doing everything that you're kind of expected to do, then it's great to be able to move that time. Like the goal isn't just to be sitting on Slack. That's definitely not the goal, to be sitting on Slack all day replying to messages. And like, yeah, it's you know, people do need your responses, and if you have a kind of pattern and routine, people know when to expect replies from you and when you're not going to be at work and when you're working off of Slack, for example. And I think it's really important to have those, especially with remote work, have those kind of boundaries on your time. Otherwise you could very easily fall into the like, oh, I'll just be immediately responsive all the time because I've got my phone, I've got my laptop open, and actually you don't feel good doing it that way. So managing your time well and setting your schedule and making sure just everyone who you work with knows what your schedule is, I think is a great way to manage it and still use your freedom to do everything that you actually want to do.
Okay, I've got to ask you about travel, because it feels like, I mean, if I was thinking about going traveling like you guys do, I just wouldn't even know where to start. So where do you start? When you and Luke are planning one of your crazy adventures, how do you start, and what advice do you have for someone who's thinking of, they've always wanted to do it but they've never taken that leap?
My advice is to not think too hard about it, but to have a plan of where you want to go. And my other piece of advice is to travel really slowly, to, especially when you're working, not try and like crash in. Like, it's not traveling in the sense of like, I'm going to spend 3 days in this town, 3 days in this town, 2 days in this town, and like take the bus and the train and whatever. That is just unsustainable and painful and very exhausting to do. So my advice is always to kind of actually research somewhere you would like to be, knowing that you would probably spend a while there, like at least a few weeks, maybe a few months. When Luke and I first started with EN, we actually had just moved to Costa Rica, and we hadn't really decided specifically on Costa Rica. All we did was decide that we were going to work remotely. And at the time, we didn't have a huge amount of money, because I'm talking like way back when we'd just kind of finished teaching abroad and decided we wanted a career change, and we were just going to invest in spending some time doing that. So we spent a lot of our savings on actually changing career and deciding what to do. And we just decided we were going to house sit anywhere in the world so that we would have free accommodation for a little while and be based somewhere. And we decided we'd take the first good offer that we got, no matter where it was. As long as we had a Skype call with the homeowner, and as long as they were legit and not like some crazy person on the other side of the world, then we'd take it. So that's how we ended up going to Costa Rica. And then from there, travel plans just fell into place. We originally actually thought we were going to do all the way from Costa Rica down to Chile, which on reflection is an extremely huge continent, double continent, that was not going to be possible. And actually 6 months later we were still in Costa Rica because we loved it so much, and we just decided to be flexible around what we actually wanted to do. In terms of how we've planned our trip since then, well, we're actually still finishing this original trip that we started down to Chile. So we've made it to Colombia in the space of 5 years with trips back and forth to other places as well, and also spending time at home in Brighton and London so that we could do other things that we wanted to prioritise at the time. So most of our travel is just continuing this original idea that we had. But I'd say probably the first jumping off point for anyone thinking about it is just base yourself somewhere different, and you just have to kind of be okay that it might not be what you expect, and if it's not and you hate it, you can always go home.
That's amazing advice. It still feels really intimidating, but you're basically saying just go for it.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not sure that I usually say just go for it.
No, I'm really surprised by a lot of this.
I think it was just, yeah, sometimes you have to just take yourself out of your comfort zone. And I guess
Mm.
everyone has boundaries on what area of their life they would do that with. And I think moving abroad, especially if you're UK based, for example, moving abroad to Poland or Germany or somewhere close is not going to be a massive cultural change for you. So that's a really good start. And also, I think there's other motivating factors. Like originally, Luke and I moved to Taiwan before we started work with Ian, and the motivating factor was to save money. And it's still the same. Like living abroad, if you're traveling in Colombia, it's cheaper than living in London for sure. Um, so I guess there's just those kind of priorities, and if you weigh up the pros and cons, and you're like, well, the pros definitely work for me. That's how you make the decision.
Amazing. And just one final mini question. How
Mm.
important would you say that traveling has been to shaping the person that you are today?
Hugely, I'd say it's been one of the main influencing factors, as well as the people I spend my time with. Um, Traveling's been massive, and I think it's really shaped a lot of how I deal with situations, particularly how I deal with stressful situations as well. Staying calm under the pressure of many unexpected things going wrong or changing or not being what you planned is something that you have to deal with like very frequently during traveling. And it's been a major component of my work life as well and influencing that. But also, I think there's a huge part of traveling that is around your gratitude and appreciation for your life situation. You just meet a lot of people when you travel who are in very different situations, or see a lot of places where things are very different to how you live in London or how you'd live in Brighton or Nottingham or wherever. And it really changes your perspective on like, wow, was I lucky to be born to a family in the UK? Wow, am I lucky to have a remote job? Wow, am I lucky to be able to travel and have that kind of freedom to change my priorities and my commitments however I want, and contribute differently to the world. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Tim.